Opposition fighters battling Muammar Gaddafi's forces have now taken another key city in eastern Libya. The rebels have just captured Brega after earlier seizing Ajdabiya. These are their first major victories since last weekend's launch of coalition airstrikes. The government is reporting heavy allied attacks against pro-Gaddafi forces, taking place on the road between Ajdabiya and the city of Sirte. Now, coalition officials say that its air campaign is aiming at enforcing a UN no-fly zone and protecting civilians.
From their vantage point in the western mountains of Libya, opposition fighters watch Colonel Gaddafi's troops moving in the valley. Just a few kilometers away, a battle has raged all day. There are dead on both sides, but Gaddafi's forces have retreated.
I'm in one of the opposition fighter outposts high in the Nafusa mountain range, and you can see why a position like this gives them such command of the territory. You can see for miles from a place like this. Now, below me, in the valley there, are some 50 Gaddafi fighting vehicles. The rebels have been watching them come and go. There's been up to 100 there, and this position has taken fire from them. They've even been hit by Grad rockets.
But the fighters were cheered by what they say were the first ever NATO airstrikes in the mountains that morning.
Before they move as they will, because the NATO never strike here. But today morning when they strike, now they are afraid from the NATO.
This remote mountain range is home to Libya's Berber minority. They told us Gaddafi hoped to start a fight between Berbers and their Arab neighbors, but the revolution has buried the differences between the two.
All what he did, he make us united more and more than we were before.
The town of Nalut now feels deserted. Gaddafi has cut the water and electricity. Women, children and many elderly have fled to Tunisia, leaving the men behind to defend the region. And at Nalut Central Hospital, the first casualties arrive from the fight with Gaddafi's military 10 kilometers away. These men have vastly inferior weapons, but they know the territory. Also at the hospital, wounded Gaddafi soldiers are brought in and given the same care. Locals tell us it's vital to behave ethically. At the Transitional Local Council, the elders of the community had a message for Colonel Gaddafi.
We want him to leave.
We call on Gaddafi to leave, with his children and all the people who surround him. Because he destroyed this country, humans, animals, he destroyed everything that has been built or achieved in this country over the past 40 years.
The people of this region will fight Gaddafi forever, they told us. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Nalut, Western Libya.
A ship carrying nearly 1,200 migrants from the besieged Libyan city of Misrata has arrived in rebel-controlled Benghazi. Most of the evacuees are migrants from Bangladesh and Egypt. Many aboard the chartered Greek vessel were in desperate need of medical attention upon arrival after weeks with little food or water. They were among more than 8,000 migrants living around the port of Misrata without shelter, adequate food, access to clean water or medical care. A Red Cross team has now arrived in the city to assess the situation. Earlier this week, the organization said it was opening an office in Tripoli at the invitation of the Libyan government and would also send a team to Misrata to help civilians there.
3 months into NATO's operation in Libya, the death toll and injury figures have climbed on both the government and opposition sides. As a result of that, hospitals in the city of Benghazi are having serious difficulty coping with the situation. Swailing Nan has more.
This medical center can only run at 1/3 of its capacity in accepting injured patients. This man was hurt by a mortar shell in Misrata. 3 Ukraine nurses are helping clean his wound. They can only prioritize those who are severely injured.
After the conflict, the main problem is lack of staff.
5 out of 6 nurses working in Benghazi hospitals come primarily from the Philippines, Ukraine, and India. The nurse in charge explains why local colleagues can't help out.
So there is a lot of problems. So they are very good because they are trained, but they are not authorized to work at night. This is the problem.
Some of the foreign nurses chose to go back home since the crisis started. Many Benghazi hospitals have sent requests for more nurses to the Indian and Filipino governments, but they're mostly declined for safety reasons. Doctors say they're training medical students for the posts.
Training course just to know the basic nursing principles, and now we are almost totally dependent on them.
Although volunteers from Egypt and Tunisia are helping perform emergency surgeries, severe trauma patients still need care from professionals. The opposition National Transitional Council says while it's short-handed on money, the medical budget will not decrease. Cui Lingnan, CCTV.